Santham Academy. Welcome to Digital Kaksha. To get updates on new videos, click the subscribe button and the bell icon.
Now further we can classify tax revenue in two parts: direct taxes and indirect taxes. So those taxes which burden can't be shifted to another one. That means if it is I am liable to pay and I will have to pay. I can't change or I can't shift burden on another person will come under direct tax, like property tax, income tax, because income tax will be levied on my income. So I will have to pay. No one can or no other person can pay income tax me, or that is I can't transfer. Okay, it can't be shifted. Clear? That is liability can't be shifted to another one. Whether the some taxes where the burden can be shifted, like sales tax. So sales tax and excise tax normally should be paid by the salesman, shopkeeper, businessman, but it is paid by consumer. Okay, when we purchase the article, it is mentioned MRP inclusive of all taxes. That means basically taxes are paid by us when we are going to purchase any of the article. GST is also part of that indirect tax. Okay, another category of taxes are especially which are imposed on the income: progressive tax, regressive tax and proportional tax. Okay, now progressive tax are those taxes which increases with the increase in income. It is assumed by the government the person who is having more income, earning more profit, generating more income, they can pay more. So who are earning less, even some people are exempted itself. Who are earning less, there is no need to pay tax, or a very less amount has to be paid. Otherwise, who was earning more, with the increase in income, the liability of the taxes will increase. Okay, that is called progressive tax. Another one is called proportional tax. That means the amount of the tax will be remain same. Percentage, suppose the 10% is imposed by the government. So if you are earning 1 lakh rupees, you will have to pay 10,000. If you are earning 100 rupees, you will have to pay 10 rupees. So if you are earning 1 crore rupees, you will have to pay 10 lakh rupees as a tax. That means proportion of the tax will be remain same. It normally happens in the indirect taxes, like when we purchase article. You are purchasing, suppose one packet of one article, you will have to pay some certain. If you are purchasing 2, you will have to pay double. If you are purchasing 3, you will have to pay 3 times more. Okay. Third one is regressive, which is normally not in practice. With the increase in income, the burden of the taxes reduces, but it is not in practice. But these are the 3 broad categories. The major source of the income, that is in the case of the taxes, is indirect tax, because it includes everyone, because every person is consuming any of the article, whether the cheaper one or the costly one, basically they are consuming. You are purchasing the article of 2 rupees or 2 crore rupees, the sum of the taxes are included. So that's the every person is included, and governments generate lots of the revenue through the indirect taxes instead of the direct taxes like income taxes. Now we will discuss about the budget expenditure. Already we have discussed about the one of the important component of the budget expenditure, that is capital expenditure and revenue expenditure. So once again we recall, capital expenditure are those expenditure which increases the assets or reduces the liability, or if they, in other case, if there is no impact on the assets and liability, it will be termed as a revenue expenditure. Another category of expenditure of government is development expenditure and non-development expenditure, which are somehow related with the productive purpose, economic growth, economic aspects. They comes under the development expenditure. Okay, like constructions of the some articles, in settlement of the industries, even focusing on the health or education of the people comes under the development expenditure, because it is related with the productive capability. increases the or somehow related with the production capacity. Non-development expenditure like collection of the taxes, audit. So somehow it is not related at all with the development. So this comes under the non-development expenditure. Okay. Another comes under planned expenditure. These are the categories, but our focus will be remain on capital expenditure and revenue expenditure, because it will be used to find out the our deficit, types of the deficit, which we will discuss further. Now planned expenditure and non-planned expenditure. Broadly you can classify whatever it is planned, especially under the 5-year planning. Whatever the transaction comes will be treated under the planned expenditure, and rest of the things will fall under the non-planned expenditure. Okay, so these are the some broad categories mentioned over here about the budget expenditure, types of the expenditure basically we are discussing. Now we will discuss about the budget, types of budget. Okay, balanced budget and imbalanced budget. Now we will discuss about the types of budget. We can broadly classify budget into two types: balanced budget and imbalanced budget. Okay, like balanced budget means where both the section, both the component, that is expenditure and receipt, are equal. Okay, expenditure is equal to receipts. That means neither we are having the deficit, that means loss, nor we are having the surplus in our hand. Equitable, equal. Okay, there is no disturbance. Imbalanced budget, that means either our expenditure is more compared to our receipt, or our receipts is more compared to our expenditure. Now deficit means loss, that means expenditure are more than receipts. We are having more expenditure, comes under the deficit. Suppose we generate 100 rupees as a revenue, but our expenditure is 200. That means we are in loss, deficit budgeting. Okay. Surplus budget is just opposite of the that deficit budget. Our receipts are more. Our receipts are 200. That is, receipt of the government is 200, but expenditure is 100. That is, they are saving 100 rupees. Okay. So that comes under the surplus budget. In most of the countries, most of the economy, even the developed economy, also follow the deficit budgeting. Okay, because that is a concept. The government should not keep amount with them, because if they are saving the amount, they are not going to spend on the people. The economic growth will be hampered, especially in the backward condition. Without the support of the government, without the expenditure of the government, naturally the lifestyle of the poor section, the economic growth will naturally affect it. So for the benefit of the, especially the poor section of the society, for the development of the economy, for the industrialization purpose, or for the other economic issues, most of the cases government follow deficit budgeting or deficit budget, where he spends, where he borrow lots of the money from the RBI etc. and spend on the welfare aspects. Or naturally, for in context of our country, it is very essential, because you will find we are not having very good infrastructure. The health sector is also, some health and education, rest of the things also not in good condition. So that means that is a need of lots of the infrastructure or other expenditure for the betterment of our country, and which is possible through deficit budgeting. Okay. Now, because naturally most of the countries follow the deficit budgeting or deficit budget, the balanced budget is a very quite difficult aspect. I don't think that any of the country or any of the time it is somehow balanced budget they have seen. Surplus budget may be possible, but it is not a practical type of the budget. Every country follow the deficit budgeting. Now we will discuss about the types of deficit. How can we calculate deficit of the government. And deficit is very clear, that is expenditure is more than receipts. Okay. So now we will discuss types of deficit. Now let's discuss about the types of deficit budget. Okay. So we have discussed types of the deficit budget, that is revenue deficit. Okay. How can we calculate revenue deficit? That means we will have to exclude capital expenditure and capital receipts. Only revenue expenditure and revenue receipts will be taken. In that condition, revenue expenditure is greater than revenue receipt. Capital type of transaction will not included in revenue deficit. What is the implication of this one? That means government is even not able to meet its regular expenditure. They are not able to generate that much amount of the revenue which could meet the expenditure, regular expenditure of the government. In that condition, what will happen? They will have to either increase the taxes, or it will intend to borrow from the market. Market means either from the public debt itself or through the RBI. Okay, so it's a very critical condition when some government is not able to meet its expenditure. That means they will have to borrow, and it will increase the liability. So that means revenue expenditure minus revenue receipt is equal to revenue deficit. Okay. Now fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit will take all the transaction, that is all the expenditure. All the expenditure means capital expenditure plus revenue expenditure and total receipt excluding borrowing. Okay, that is capital receipt plus revenue receipt excluding borrowing. Okay, whether the borrowing is also capital receipt, but sometimes what happens, the capital receipt disinvestment also take part. So we have to exclude borrowing. Okay, so it will show the actual deficit of the government. Okay, ultimately if the expenditure is comparatively more, the same thing will be followed. Government will reduce its expenditure on the different section, that is option. Okay, either we have to reduce the expenditure, different project will have to stop, whether related to the different aspects of the life or sites. Okay, or the another option will have to borrow lots of the money from outside. So borrowing is normally loan is taken by the government for meeting the fiscal deficit itself, but as a consequence the burden increases year by year. Clear? So lots of the borrowing if we are taking, it's not a good sign for an economy. Okay, but that is not in our hand. The government should try to focus on those type of the economy where deficit should be less. Okay, up to some certain extent it is okay. If you are borrowing from the RBI or some other sources, it is okay. But if it is reached to a very higher extent, then it can create the problem. Like for just we take our example. Okay, suppose you are earning 1 lakh rupees per month and you have borrowing 5 to 10,000 rupees. Okay, it can be adjusted, you can pay in nearby future. But the burden is increasing day by day or month by month. That is, it is reach up to the 1 lakh rupee liability. You increase the liability up to the 1 lakh rupees. Then in condition, what will happen? You will have to pay lots of the amount as a interest. Suppose you have taken the loan of the 50 lakh rupees. That means the liability will be increased. You will have to pay the interest of rupees 50 lakh. In that condition, you will have to cut down your other expenditure. Clear? Your standard of living will also be affected, because a major part of your income is just going to repay the interest. So up to a certain extent we can say that is okay for the welfare of the people, for the development project or other issues, we can borrow the loan. But if it is exceeding at the higher level, then it can create the problem. So government take the measurement to reduce the such type of the deficit also. Time to time they increases the taxes also, and somehow on the non-productive segment also they reduces their expenditure. Okay. Third one is primary deficit. Primary deficit we can calculate through fiscal deficit minus payment of interest. So basically it is used to find out what is our actual deficit, because in deficit in our expenditure, interest is also a part of expenditure. Suppose their interest is not okay, it's not part of the expenditure. What is the actual amount of the deficit? So these are the three basic categories of the deficit mentioned over here: revenue deficit, fiscal deficit, and primary deficit. Even in some of the numerical, suppose that is borrowing is given, that will be equal to the fiscal deficit. Okay. So I think all these topics of the government budget would be clear to you. Go through the book, then you will find out the difficulties and try to find out the solution also. Otherwise you can ask in the class. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thanks for watching. If you like this video, make sure to like, share and subscribe for more.